Worship brings his presence, but worship enthrones God in your presence. So whatever you're walking through, right? You feel darkness, you feel chaos, you feel like you're going to die, you feel depressed, you feel everything's feels like it's falling apart. It might be. You begin to worship in that place. You begin to shout out with a voice of triumph. That's why David was such a man after God's own heart. David was a mess, yet God calls him a man after his own heart. Why? Because he was a worshiper. He was continually repenting before the Lord, stirring up the presence of God. When all of his friends couldn't encourage him, he just started worshiping. And the Bible says he encouraged himself in the Lord. So the Lord was in his midst because he was a worshiper. He worshiped so crazy. His wife was like, "You can't worship like that." And he goes, "I will get even more undignified than this." Stop being a dignified Christian. I don't want anyone to see me be emotional. It's not about emotions. In fact, you're being emotional. You're letting your emotions control your praise. I'm not an The Bible says to worship in spirit and in truth. A day will come when true worshipers will worship. Someone throw that verse in there for me. A day will come where true worshipers will worship in spirit and in truth. Sometimes you're worshiping in spirit, and sometimes you're just worshiping in truth. You don't feel like it, but his word declares it. So I'm going to worship today. And we know that worship brings his presence. I don't have time to read the verse, but I'll just tell you about it. It's in Acts chapter 16, 22 through 34. Paul and Silas are imprisoned for preaching the gospel. This demonic lady is following them around because they're shutting down her demonic prophecy ministry that she had of making money off of people's pain. And they end up casting a demon out of her. She gets set free, but her handlers that were making money off her get mad and they jail Paul and Silas. So they're in jail. They don't just jail them. They beat them with rods. They whip them. They hang them upside down. They are bloody. They are bruised. They are in the inner cell, in the inner chamber, not for doing the wrong thing, for doing the right thing. God, why am I in this mess? Sometimes you're in a mess for doing the right thing. They are in a mess for doing the right thing. It's cold. They're waiting to die. They are waiting to be killed in the inner dungeon. And it's like, God's not here. Where's God? Most of us, most of me, most of you, we in our life would be like, God, where are you at? You left me. I was going for you. I even cast a demon out of this person. I was upsetting the modern day business. And God, where are you at? And Paul and Silas weren't saying that. They exchanged their worry and their complaint for worship. And they were upside down, bleeding, in pain. And they began to worship. They began to praise. They just began to declare. The Bible says they sang hymns. They began to sing hymns. And the Bible says that the other prisoners were listening. Someone's listening to your praise in the middle of your battle. Someone's listening to your worship. Come on, moms and dads. Someone's listening to your praise when you don't have enough money to pay the bills. Someone's listening. Come on, pastors. Your staff is listening to your praise. I remember a time where I told someone at a conference, man, my staff is just depressed. And the person confronted me and they said, no, actually, you're depressed. And the reason why your staff is depressed is because they've been listening to you whine. They've been listening to you worry. And I got convicted. And I said, you know what? I may be worrying, but I need to start exchanging my worry for worship because the prisoners are listening. The other people trapped in here with me are looking for me to be the leader in this situation. And so, man, I encourage you. Paul and Silas begin to pray. They begin to worship. They begin to sing in that dungeon. I dare you